Greetings, folks, and welcome to the Electromaker podcast. This is your audio midweek roundup of all things maker and embedded and lovely. This is the podcast version of what is essentially a video show you will find on the Electromaker YouTube channel. And let me say right off the top, if you are someone who does use YouTube, I would massively appreciate it if you subscribe to that channel and like the video, even if it's not something you plan to watch, because it just helps the show in general. But yeah, this is the audio version of it, and as usual, some of it might seem a little bit odd because I'm referring to things that are on the screen, but where it's really impenetrable what's happening, or where I just feel like it helps, I will dip in and give a little bit more context from a podcast perspective. There's a few new things that we talk about in this week's show, including the Electromaker Educator series with Robin Mitchell. And if you are a podcast-only listener, let me ask you right off the top of the show, would you be interested in hearing a sort of podcast-esque conversation between me and Robin, as we are both people at Electromaker, and I know him vaguely from working here, but we haven't really had a chat. And we come from slightly different backgrounds, although we're both interested in similar things. He actually was trained as an engineer, but is now a freelance writer and educator, whereas I have no formal training whatsoever. I've just bashed my head against knowledge, hoping some of it falls into it, and yet here we are both talking about microcontrollers on the internet. So if it's something you would be interested in hearing, a sort of informal chat between me and Robin, let me know. It's something I can organize and put out as a bonus podcast episode. The best way to let me know is to either email ian@electromaker.io or head to our Discord server and just tag me in one of the channels or something. Anyway, that is, as always, a slightly longer introduction than it needs to be for the podcast. Let's pick up with the rest of the show. We're going to start this week's show by looking at a new series we have here on Electromaker. If you're subscribed to the channel, you may have noticed in your subscription feed a new type of video showed up. This is the first of the Electromaker Educator series. Something that I knew was coming, but I'm very excited that it's finally here. This is hosted by Robin Mitchell, who is an educator and an engineer. He has all of the formal training that I do not have. And it is a fantastic whistle-stop tour through every different microcontroller. Not every different microcontroller. Broadly large types of microcontrollers. Microcontrollers from PIC, microcontrollers from ST Microelectronics, like the well-fabled known STM32, and of course the AVR chips that you find in Arduinos, and of course looking at the new kid on the block, the RP2040 from Raspberry Pi. It is a wonderfully paced video where Robin tells you from experience what these chips are for, what you can use them for, how easy they are to get started with, whether their tool chains are free or proprietary. It goes into detail in a way that I don't really get to do in the Electromaker Show, and frankly, I don't have the confidence or the knowledge to do either. I'm so glad that we're able to start putting this kind of content out for Electromaker, as well as the general gabble about things I'm interested in every week that I do. So I will leave a link to this blog post in the description of the video. You can find out everything you need to know about it, and of course take a link right out to the video itself. It's really fantastic. Fantastic job on that, Robin. I've watched this video like 4 times now. And while we're talking about the stuff that Robin is doing for Electromaker, this is an article from Robin on the Electromaker website. And it asks a kind of interesting question, which is when it comes to making your PCBs, is it worth ever doing it at home? Is it worth ever having a DIY approach to it? I have only once in my life actually made a PCB by hand. I had help to do it, and it was a very interesting thing to do. I learned a lot. But is there really any reason to do that with so many cheap PCB services out there? It is a compelling question, and this article looks at the advantages and disadvantages of both approaches. And again, as I previously mentioned, Robin is trained as an engineer. Robin has actually got hands-on experience with all of this. He's able to talk about this in a way that I simply do not have the knowledge to do so, and I'm very glad for that. So, if you are interested in finding this out, especially if you are someone who's getting into PCB fabrication, maybe starting to come up with your own designs for things, the idea of making it completely at home, homegrown PCBs, is something that I know is very alluring to a lot of very DIY-minded people. But this article is certainly worth a read to help you make your mind up whether it's worth spending the time doing it at home or simply getting someone else to do it for you. We're moving on to a project I saw on Hackaday this week that I just think is fantastic. It is repurposing microcontrollers that are out there in the wild that aren't necessarily meant to be reprogrammed once they're out there. And this is a passion project from someone called Aaron Christoffel, who has documented this on his YouTube channel using an ESP32 based board as a programmer for a variety of Texas Instruments chips. So the Hackaday article gives a great rundown about what this project is about. As mentioned, this is an ESP32 based board which is being used as a go-between between you and the Texas Instruments boards. And at the minute, as it says, the project supports the CC2430, CC2510 and CC1110 variants. And as you will see in the video that he's put out about it, there are a number of things that use this. One of the things he shows is a Zigbee/Bluetooth dongle. This is something that, of course, you can use to plug into your computer to add Zigbee or Bluetooth to it. But there's also some other things he shows, things like these tags for shops. These are e-paper displays that are designed to show a price in a shop that can be updated over the air. Now, actually programming these things or reprogramming them is possible because you can buy reprogrammers from Texas Instruments. They have their own programming devices. But the way he has done this is much, much easier. There's now actually a way you can attach an ESP32 directly to the board using these headers just there. And once you've done it, it's just ready to go. Then you can start reprogramming it. And since this is the ESP32, remember, you can start reprogramming it over the air. Now, as always, I probably haven't explained this as well as the project creator will explain it themselves. And Aaron's video is fantastic. It is, 20 minutes long, going into everything you need to know about this, how he designed these PCBs, how he got them printed, how it all works and how it all fits together. And there are examples of it in use as well. So as well as going through the code, there is a tool that was made to make it easier to flash them, I think. Yes, so here's a tool where you can use a browser-based web server. You can log into a web server on the ESP32 and you have a GUI in order to reprogram these TI chips, which is an order of magnitude easier than having to try and reprogram them the way they were originally programmed using a TI programmer. The amount of work behind the scenes it must have taken to get this up and running is phenomenal, and it is a wonderful project. And as well as heading to the Hackaday article, which will be in the description of the video, I suggest maybe coming over to Aaron's channel and giving him a subscription, because I imagine there'll be a lot more interesting content along these lines coming soon. As it mentions here in the article, these are the chips that are currently supported right now, but Aaron plans to add support for many more in the future. And as someone who's never really used Texas Instruments chips in their work before, at least not Texas Instruments microcontrollers, I'm kind of interested to find out a little bit more about it. So I'll leave a link to this Hackaday article in the description. From there you can get to the YouTube video, and from the YouTube video you can get to the GitHub where all of this project is stored, along with the Gerber files to make those PCBs for yourself if you would like to. Moving over to Electromaker of the Month. Now, if you aren't familiar, we have a rolling contest here at Electromaker where 3 projects from the project page are picked every month, and out of those 3 there's 1 winner and 2 runners-up. And you're winning actual prizes here. The winner wins a bunch of stuff from Nordic Semiconductor, a bunch of fantastic prototyping equipment, including a Thingy 91, an NRF 52840 dev kit. I may have messed up the numbers there, apologies. And also a $50 Amazon gift voucher. The runner-ups also get a whole lot of swag from Nordic, including a little USB BLE, or is it Zigbee dongle for development, and everyone gets a bunch of Electromaker swag, including one of these rather swaggy Electromaker t-shirts. And yeah, we have our winners for March, and there are some fantastic projects. And the third place runner-up this month was the DIY RP2040 Space Mouse, something we've actually already talked about on the show. And the reason that is because I don't actually have anything to do with picking the winners of this. I quite like the fact that I'm independent. I just get to talk enthusiastically about projects, and then a judging panel picks these prizes. So I'm not even going to go into too much detail about this. If you'd like to know more about the Space Mouse, I talk about it at length, maybe last show or the show before, I can't remember. But if I was to give a one-sentence roundup of it, this is an RP2040-driven analog to a Space Mouse that's completely handmade. The rotary encoder joystick is literally a rotary encoder and a hobby joystick thumbstick stuck on top of each other, and it's just such a wonderful and inventive idea. A fitting third place. Congratulations. In second place is another project we talked about on the show, strangely enough. This is from DataGod, and this is an arcade retro clock, which uses a retro aesthetic and retro games in order to make a really dynamic looking system. It's incredible. It really, really does look good. And in fact, DataGod commented on the video 2 weeks ago, or whenever it was, that I talked about this in the first place, and says that it actually looks even better than this in real life. The camera actually takes away a bit of the magic of it. It's a really fantastic looking project. This is something he's been working on over some time, and this is running all on a Raspberry Pi 3. A Raspberry Pi 3 driving a 64 by 32 pixel display, and driving it at a pretty high frame rate, as you can see. It is a fantastic project, and these are the 2 runners-up, and as I mentioned, both of these 2 runners-up will be getting a whole host of Electromaker swag and a whole host of Nordic swag, including that USB development kit. In first place is Tarantula 3's peg box with temperature and humidity monitor project. This is taking an old DIY idea, as in really DIY, woodworking, making a peg box for holding the pegs when you hang up your clothes, and adding a smart element to it. This is by adding a temperature and humidity sensor and a wireless microcontroller which reports to a Raspberry Pi, and that server logs the data so you can log into the server and see that at any given time. Our judges were really impressed by the fact that this is a project that takes various different skills, and it is a very complete and enclosed project. So this is the winner for this month. Congratulations. And Tarantula 3 will be receiving all of this stuff. So as mentioned, the NRF 5340 development kit. I may have said something completely different before. Please ignore that. Along with the Nordic Thingy 91, a tile, and a massive Nordic mug. And we do like a massive Nordic mug around here. So that was the Electromaker of the Month winners for March. But the whole point of it being Electromaker of the Month is it happens every single month. So if you have a project that you're working on, or if you have an idea, something you want to teach, anything that you think would fit in the project section, do think about making an Electromaker account. It's free to do so, and sticking your project up there, because you could win the $50 Amazon gift voucher and a bunch of Nordic stuff, or of course you could win, bunch of other stuff as well. The Nordic swag is kind of cool. I'd like to remember the name of this. The NRF 52840 dongle. This is a little, I think it's Bluetooth low energy and Zigbee, that little dongle. It's a cool little bit of kit. I haven't had enough time to play around with it too much. But yes, any project, any kind of documentation, head under the community tab. You can upload your project there, and maybe next month you'll be the Electromaker of the Month. Who knows? So a quick note here, if you've been listening to or watching the show for a while, you'll know how much I love Mitsella. One of my favorite general creators. Way back in the day, he put out a thing called Flash Synth, which is a wonderful device. It is a synthesizer that lives inside a MIDI DIN connector. I actually own one, and yeah, it's MIDI at one end and output, audio output at the other, and the only thing in between is an STM32 chip that he has managed to somehow cram an incredible synthesizer on, which is microtonal, polyphonic, and it has a bunch of different potential sounds, and comes with a special programmer as well. Anyway, this particular one, I do sort of explain what's going on here, but I really have to impress on you that this is literally one of those little OLED I2C screens that you can get for cheap off AliExpress or eBay that he has wired into an HDMI cable that he has plugged straight into his laptop. You get not even one line of the terminal as a second screen. He's running i3, and you can see the time on the bottom of the screen, and there's enough space for maybe 8 characters before he runs out of screen space. The refresh rate is awful, and it's been spliced together, and it's, you know, a bit of a joke, but it is also wonderful. I do almost wonder whether he meant to put it out on April 1st. It came out on March 31st. But it is almost like an April Fool's video. And also, when I say the smallest and worst HDMI display ever, that's me literally reading the title of the video. Yeah, I wouldn't judge something so harshly. Anyway, I thought I'd just add this little bit for context, because this is a very visual thing. If there's one part of this week's show you do actually seek out by video, I would suggest it's this one. If there is ever anything you hear in the show that you're interested in seeing, bear in mind that under the YouTube video itself in the description, there are chapters that you can click to just jump straight to whatever content you want to, if you just want to pick up on something you've listened to and would like to see the visual version of it as well. Anyway, on with the section. Now, we're a little crushed for time this week, but I couldn't let the week go by without acknowledging that Mitsella has uploaded yet another video, and this one is short but sweet. This is taking one of the I2C OLED displays that I'm sure most of us have seen, had our hands on, probably have a couple lying around the place, and using it as an HDMI display. And it is remarkably simple and yet amazingly complex all at the same time. But as you're seeing right now on the screen, this is a second monitor for his laptop. If you would like to know more about the smallest and worst HDMI display ever, you can look in the description of this video. I'll be linking it in the description of our video, and if you head to mitsella.com, in fact, if you've never been to his website before, it's even more amazing than his YouTube channel. It's just a big write-up about it. And this is really interesting for a number of reasons. Interesting that he managed to get this I2C display working over HDMI. Spoiler, HDMI has a slow I2C, I2C bus inside the HDMI signal. I need to reread this once more to really get it inside my head. It's also just a really interesting slice into how HDMI works. I've always been aware that it is a fiendishly complicated protocol, but even just learning a little bit about it through this was sort of interesting. So yes, I will leave a link to both of those in the description. So if you listen to the show regularly, you've probably heard me say this many times, so I'll keep it quite short. The Electromaker podcast is supported entirely by the Electromaker store. If you head to www.electromaker.io and click on the shop tab, you will come to our shop. We sell pretty much everything from everybody, from everybody who does hobby electronics and some professional things as well. We don't have a Patreon, we don't run adverts, we don't ask for donations or anything like that. We just have a shop. If you'd like to support us, that's the best way you can possibly do so. But I'd like to also take this opportunity to thank every single one of our listeners. It absolutely brings me joy to see just how many people download this podcast every week. We obviously have people who are interested in hearing audio versions of the show, and that is something that is not lost on me. As I mentioned at the start of the show, an interview with Robin is on the cards if it's something people would be interested in. If there's any other ideas you have, please do let me know. Anyway, on with the show. It is time for a very quick mystery box contest. Now, if you're new to the channel and you don't know what this is a box of mystery items that the wonderful people at Mauser Electronics have sent us. And I try to keep it sort of secret to myself what is in here as well. I just reach in each week and I pull something out, and then I have a look at what it is, and then I give it away to someone who watches the YouTube show. And this is a relatively, seemingly unmarked box from Mauser, although on the side here I can see it has a designation. And it is PIC 24FJ256GA7 Curiosity Development Board. I think it's probably a fair gain to say that this is a development board for the PIC 24 microcontroller. Now, this box is completely sealed, so I'm not going to open it up, but I have found the website here. This is what the development board itself looks like. And as you can see, it has a place there that you can attach add-ons. I think that's two microbus click ports. I've forgotten the name of this. Connector. And then there's a whole host of space over there for you to work with. So this looks like a really quite wide, broad way of evaluating this particular board. As mentioned, it is for the PIC 24FJ256GA7. If that's the designation of the chip, I'm not sure. Let's have a look. Yeah, low cost, extreme low power microcontroller. Ah, okay. So it's a super low power microcontroller. This is the board itself. I can leave a link to this in the description if you'd like to read more about the board. But as is the nature of this show, we don't have much time to talk about it before we give it away to a random person. Again, if you are new to the show, you leave a comment on the video and you are automatically entered into the mystery box contest. You don't have to say I'd like to be in the contest or anything. Just every single comment is potentially a competition entry. And now I look at last week's show, pick a random comment from the crowd, and that's who wins this box. And the winner of this lovely little PIC 24 development kit is Ingeniero Trollazzo, whose name I've absolutely mispronounced and I apologize, who said on last week's show, that robotic arm looks crazy. We were thinking of developing one like that in the future, but we may have to change plans. Do you have any kind of feature that Brachio didn't get? Now, this is referring to the Arduino Brachio robotic arm that was announced during Arduino Week. And to answer your question, Ingeniero, I have no idea. I'm very interested to hear who you are in terms of developing robot arms, however. Anyway, we'll be in touch with you as to how you can we can send this lovely little development board to you. And if indeed you do end up building a robotic arm using this PIC microcontroller, we would love to see it. But yes, congratulations. We'll be in touch with you. And the mystery box competition will continue. It is possibly the simplest idea for a competition we could come up with. We were lucky enough to have a nice big box of stuff to give away. And what better way to give it away than completely at random? For those of you who are interested, by the way these prize winners are chosen, I literally put the name of every person who comments on a video into a spreadsheet each week, choose the number of, and then take the number of people that is, and then use a random number generator to generate a winner. That is literally how it works. It is the most random competition in the world, and I love it. Anyway, let's get on with the rest of the show. For funding website things this week, we are returning to a project that we looked at in the past, and that is Roendi. It was a pre-launch project back then, and Roendi stands for Rotary Encoder Display. And that is exactly what it is. The project has now gone live and it is currently in the funding stage. And as you can see, this is a fantastic little device. It is a little 1.27-inch customizable display inside the body of a rotary encoder. It is completely enclosed. It looks professional. It looks great. And as it mentions here, it's great for a variety of applications. The one that I immediately thought of was some kind of DIY home automation control. Rather than having a bunch of different controls on a panel or a tablet or something like that, you could have this one little device. And yeah, there's a huge amount that you can do with a customizable screen and a rotary encoder. Once you have that visual feedback, it's a way of selecting things and actually seeing what level something is at. Since it is completely programmable via the STM32 on board, and they have made Arduino IDE support for this thing, you could do a lot with that. You could do a hell of a lot with that. Visual feedback turns rotary encoders into something that, if you're clever about it, can do a lot more than they could without that visual feedback. So by means of an example, here's the developer of Roendi using it as a digital passcode lock. Now, of course, this is just a little demonstration. This isn't meant to be secure. It isn't meant to show any proper functionality. Don't put this on the safe that's holding all your money. But yeah, it just gives you one idea as to how this thing could be used. Now, if you'd like to know a lot more about this, including things like the layout, all the features and specifications, and the comparisons to other similar things, go to the link in the description. It will be there. But just quickly, they're raising $12,700. That's what they're looking to get, and they've already got $2,147. If you're interested in getting involved, there is a $99 version of backing Roendi, which gives you everything except the 3D printed enclosure. The idea is this is made from aluminium and PLA, so you can print your own at home. Or the ready-to-go kit for $29 more, you get one which is just a ready to start playing with and developing with. I said at the time, this is a fantastic project. The idea is so solid. It all comes down to the price. I kind of think that price is fair for what is a quite unique and very nice looking little device, but of course, your mileage may vary. Still, there'll be a link to this in the description of the video, and I still stand by it. I think this is one of the coolest and simplest, like some of the coolest ideas are simple ideas that make you go, why didn't I think of doing that? And this is one of those for me. Now, just briefly, you may have remembered some time ago I talked about the NXP Cup. This is a autonomous vehicle cup that NXP run for students from various universities around the world. And there's the other me just there. If you'd like to know a little bit more about it, there'll be a link to this page in the description, and you can go and take a look. And the NXP Cup is now underway, and I thought it might be nice to drop in and see if some of the people who are taking part in the NXP Cup video contest that we are running have uploaded anything to their YouTube channels yet. Now, if you are interested in following along with how different teams are doing in the NXP Cup, the way that I found this essentially is just by searching on YouTube for NXP Cup and filtering them by the most recent updates. So as you can see, this is updated 11 days ago from Fukukeicho. They've actually uploaded several things so far, small steps along their journey to getting things up and running, and it's fascinating. Here's one problem, for example. This camera module here does not work with the SBC that he's using. So he's had to bodge it together by literally soldering each different connection from the ribbon cable into getting the SPC working. Following this along piece by piece, along with, as you can see, the more recent video is a working op amp and a 3D die stacking. I haven't even had a look at this one yet. Anyway, I should look at this later. I'm making a video. But yeah, you can follow along with how the NXP Cup teams are getting along, which I think is a super interesting thing that we're going to be able to do. And every couple of weeks or so, we'll come back and have a look and see how everyone's getting along. There's another video up here already I want to give a quick shout out to. This is Eduardo Lira, and I didn't quite catch the team name. It sounds like he says conflicts optimization. That's what the automatic subtitles think too, which is a group of students here in Amsterdam, as he says. For anyone who is part of the NXP Cup, by the way, when you upload your videos, it would be super useful if you could put your team name and your university name in the description of the video, because that way I can give your team name and your university a shout out as and when I'm looking through these videos. If you would like to know a little bit more about the NXP Cup and the NXP Video Cup competition as we're going through it, let me know in the comments of this video, because if you are interested in kind of following a team along as they build a robot or following what the teams are doing, I could do a little bit more of a deep dive into it. As it happens right now, I just want to sort of say, look, this is happening. The students are making these fantastic videos that are going to be going up, and as time goes on, I'm going to be dipping into them and saying, hey, look at this, when people hit milestones or just do something that I think is particularly cool. I have never personally built an autonomous line following robot, despite it being a sort of fundamental electronic engineering and robotics idea. I'm living vicariously through the people who are doing this, and I'm really enjoying every second of it so far. So I will leave a link to this NXP Video Cup contest blog post in the description. You can also find out everything you need to know, of course, from NXP about the cup itself. Yes, as I mentioned, NXP Cup on YouTube brings up a whole host of items, but if you search by most recent, you will find the teams who are currently working on their projects right now. We're going to close out this week's show by talking about something that was a bit new for me. I got sent an item to review, and in fact for this whole show you've been looking at it. It is the framed Game Boy Color that has been disassembled and put onto this template on the wall. So this is from a company called X-Re-Art, who did send me the frame for free. I should make that clear. But I agreed to do this review, and I wasn't necessarily expecting to be all that impressed, but I really like this thing. I shouldn't, just to note as well, the version that you're seeing in the background here, I've taken the plexiglass cover off that because it reflects quite badly on the studio lights. The version that you get will look a lot more like the one that you see in the image just here, which has the glass covering. It looks very much like a normal framed print would, but it's not a print. This is actually a old Game Boy Color that has been disassembled and attached. Hopefully some of the other video footage I'm showing you makes that clear, and there's also some photos in here that will help you see it too. I don't want to spend too much time talking about it in the show. I wrote a quite thorough review of it on the Electromaker website, and for something that is just something that you put on the wall to look at, something that has no real, it's not a development kit, you don't make things with this, it is a made product. But the more I looked at it, and the more I read about the company, and the more I thought about it, the more I actually like this as an idea. They do Game Boys, they also do some other things. I think you can get pretty much every iPhone that's ever been disassembled and put out onto these templates. Same with there's a Game Boy Advance here and a Game Boy Pocket. There's various different kinds, and in fact, if we just jump to XReArt, you'll see what I mean. So here they have ones for iPhones. This is one for the Apple Watch. And one of the things I really liked about this as well is that they also sell kits. So as well as the versions that we have, so the version behind me is a disassembled Game Boy Color that they put in a frame. But they also sell just the frames with the templates. They have free templates you can download and frame yourself for your own technology. They also sell the tools you need to disassemble old products. Yeah, I was actually surprised at my feelings for this project as a whole. What I initially thought might be similar to a lot of other art that focuses on people who are into, for want of a better term, geeky culture. It's actually a really nice project aimed at the idea of not wasting things. It's to avoid e-waste. Let's turn these broken bits of tech into art by disassembling them, cleaning them, and presenting them as the things that they are, slices of the past. Anyway, this is a little bit different to the normal stuff that we have on Electromaker, but as I said, I ended up writing quite a long review about it, and it's been on my mind. It's in the background as we speak right now. If you are interested, there'll be a link to this review in the description of the video. And as mentioned, you don't have to buy necessarily a fully assembled one of these. If you have an old iPhone sitting about in a drawer, have a look. There are some completely free to download templates already there. They even have instructions on their blog how to tear down certain products. So yeah, it's certainly worth a look. There's a little more to this than just a product. There's definitely an idea behind it, and I found it quite compelling. So that was the Electromaker podcast for this week. Thank you so much for joining me. I will be back next week with another full show. And if there's anything that you think I've missed this week, if there's anything you'd like me to feature in the show, if you have any suggestions at all, please do get in touch. That's ian@electromaker.io. But for now, I hope you have a safe, fun, and creative week, and I'll chat to you next time.